They say every man remembers the exact moment his life takes a sharp left turn. For me, it was a Tuesday evening when I came home early, still in my suit, tie loosened like I'd just survived a boardroom firing squad. The house smelled like lavender candles, and something else I couldn't place at first. Later, I'd realize it was the faint musk of a man who wasn't me. Monica, my wife of 12 years, stood in the kitchen, cutting peppers like she was auditioning for a cooking show. Perfect smile, hair tied back in a neat bun, not a single bead of sweat despite clearly being in a rush. "Hey, you're home early," she said without looking up. "Yeah, traffic was light. Got lucky," I replied, tossing my keys on the counter. I leaned in for a kiss, and she gave me one of those quick, cold pecks you'd give a distant aunt at Thanksgiving. That was my first clue. Now, I'm not a paranoid guy. I don't go rifling through phones or hiring private investigators. But when you've been married long enough, you start noticing little things. A new perfume she just found in the back of the cabinet. The way her phone suddenly learned the art of face-down yoga on the countertop. Her laugh sounding a little too rehearsed when she texted a friend. So, I decided to test the waters. "Who was that on the phone earlier?" I asked casually, grabbing a bottle of water. She froze just long enough for me to notice. "Oh, just Kelly. From work." "Funny," I said, twisting off the cap. I heard a man's voice. She turned, eyes sharp, lips pulling into the kind of smile people wear when they're bluffing with a losing poker hand. "Maybe you misheard. You know how voices echo on speakerphone." That's when I knew. I didn't have proof, but my gut had just slammed the gavel. The trial was over before it started. Here's the thing, though. I didn't let on. I smiled, kissed her cheek again, and asked, "So, what's for dinner?" Because if she was playing games, she had no idea she was already up against someone who'd been planning his next move since the second I walked through that door. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to get smart. And if Monica thought she could outmaneuver me, she was about to learn she'd married the wrong chess player. The next morning, Monica left for work in a new outfit. Not new, as in fresh from the mall, but new as in who exactly are you dressing up for? Pencil skirt, blouse with one too many undone buttons, and heels I hadn't seen since our honeymoon phase. I leaned on the doorway, coffee mug in hand. "Big presentation today?" She grabbed her purse without looking at me. "Something like that." Funny, her office was a marketing firm. They sold cleaning supplies. Unless she was pitching the Pope himself, that outfit was overkill. As soon as her car pulled out of the driveway, I did what any self-respecting husband with a healthy suspicion would do. I didn't follow her. Too obvious. Instead, I called her office. "Good morning," chirped the receptionist. "Brightwave Marketing. How can I help you?" "Hi. Can I speak to Monica Keller, please?" A pause. "Oh, Monica called in sick today. Interesting." I hung up, sat at the table, and just smiled at my coffee. She thought she was clever. Cute. That evening, I played dumb. She came home at 6:30 sharp, humming like someone who just won a raffle. "How was work?" I asked, flipping through the paper. "Oh, exhausting," she said, kicking off her heels. "Meetings all day? I barely had time for lunch." I nodded, taking a sip of water. "Funny, your receptionist said you were out sick." Her face didn't move at first. Then came the laugh. High-pitched, brittle, fake. "Oh, right. I had a dentist appointment." I forgot she probably said that. Silly mix-up. I smiled back, like I bought every word. Makes sense. But in my head, I was already setting the stage. Later that night, as she scrolled through her phone in bed, I pretended to sleep. I watched the glow from her screen dance across her face as her lips curled at something she read. She even covered her mouth once. A laugh she didn't want me to hear. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. Because when you want to catch a liar, the worst thing you can do is tip them off. And Monica? She had no idea I'd already started the clock on her little game. The following week, I played my role to perfection. Sweet, attentive husband. The kind who forgets nothing and suspects nothing. On Friday, I casually mentioned, "Hey, my boss wants me on a late call tomorrow night. Might run a little long." Monica didn't even blink. "That's fine. I'll probably just stay in, maybe watch a movie." "Good idea," I said, smiling like I'd just handed her the perfect alibi. What she didn't know was that I'd already swapped the router logs into my email. Tech tip: you can wipe your texts, delete your call history, and lock your phone tighter than Fort Knox. But the Wi-Fi still remembers what apps you've been whispering through. Saturday night rolled around. I left the house at 7 o'clock sharp, kissed her on the cheek, and said, "Don't wait up." Then I drove exactly 1 block, parked, and walked back through the neighborhood like a burglar who already owned the house. I sat in my buddy Drew's car across the street, engine off, lights out. Drew owed me from college. Long story. Involves a fraternity prank and a missing mascot goat. Anyway, he didn't ask questions. He just handed me a thermos of coffee and said, "You sure about this?" Sure enough, I muttered. At 8:17, Monica's car pulled out. She wasn't wearing the sweatpants she had on when I left. Oh no, she was in the red dress. The one I bought for her birthday 2 years ago. The one she swore she'd never have the occasion to wear. Apparently, tonight was the occasion. Drew whistled low. Well, she ain't going for groceries. We tailed her. Not close enough to spook her, just enough to keep her taillights in view. She drove 20 minutes, right into the city, and parked outside a fancy little steakhouse. Not our kind of place. Too pricey, too polished. The kind of place where you reserve a table weeks ahead. And then he showed up. Mr. Tall, dark, and smug. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew the type. Slick haircut, fitted jacket, the kind of watch that screams, "I want you to ask how much it cost." He kissed her cheek. She laughed. And just like that, I had everything I needed. I didn't storm in. I didn't make a scene. I just sat there, sipping coffee, watching the show. Because the thing about revenge? It tastes better when it's slow-cooked. When I was a kid, my dad used to tell me, "Son, never start a fight you're not ready to finish." Took me 39 years and one unfaithful wife to really get what he meant. Because right then, watching Monica laugh too hard at Mr. Smug's jokes outside that steakhouse, I knew I wasn't in a fight about love anymore. I was in a war about pride. And I don't lose wars. The first net. The next morning, Monica rolled into the house at 11 a.m. with a yawn big enough to fit her guilt inside. She smelled like hotel soap, the kind we never used. She tried to act casual, kissing my cheek and mumbling, "Sorry, I couldn't sleep last night." I smiled. "No worries. You deserve your rest." She blinked, maybe expecting a jab, a question, something. But I gave her nothing. The worst thing you can do to a liar is let them think they're winning. That afternoon, while she showered, I checked the router logs I'd synced to my email. There it was. A FaceTime call at 12:42 a.m. to a number not saved in her contacts. My stomach tightened, but I didn't get mad. No, I got organized. I sent the number to a buddy of mine who works in IT security. He texted me back within the hour. "Unknown number belongs to Chase Donovan." Well, Mr. Smug had a name. The Friendly Spy. Now, I'm not the kind of guy to go full James Bond with hidden cameras and teddy bears, but I do believe in subtle insurance policies. So I called up her best friend, Rachel. If you want the truth about a woman, you don't ask her. You ask the friend she brags to when she thinks her husband isn't listening. "Hey Rachel, how's it going?" I said, keeping my tone light. "Good. Just busy, you know." "How's Monica holding up?" "She's been glowing lately." "Glowing, huh?" I chuckled. "Yeah, she has been. Late nights at the office, too." Rachel hesitated. "Office, right? Look, I probably shouldn't say anything." "No, please," I said gently. "You know you can tell me." That's all it took. Rachel spilled like an overturned wine glass. How Monica had been confused lately. How she felt like she deserved excitement. How she'd been spending a lot of time with a new colleague. When I hung up, I sat back in my chair. Rachel thought she'd betrayed a confidence. In reality, she'd just handed me the key to the vault. Bait on the hook. The following Friday, I told Monica I had a work dinner. She lit up a little too quickly. "Perfect. I'll probably just stay in again," she chirped. I kissed her cheek, smiled, and left. Only this time, I wasn't across the street in Drew's car. I was downtown at the very same steakhouse. I knew she'd go back there. People like Chase Donovan weren't creative. They reused tricks because they thought no one was smart enough to notice. Sure enough, 30 minutes later, Monica and Chase walked in, holding hands like teenagers at a carnival. They slid into a booth, her head tilted toward him, his arm brushing hers. And that's when I got my first stroke of luck. Their waiter was an old student of mine from back when I taught evening classes. Kid named Ryan. Sharp, reliable, the kind who never forgot a face. "Mr. Keller?" he said, shocked. "Hey Ryan," I whispered. "Do me a favor. That couple over there, the brunette and the guy in the navy jacket. Keep their receipt for me." Discreetly. He nodded, eyes wide, but he didn't ask why. That's why I liked the kid. 2 hours later, I left with a copy of their dinner bill. 2 entrees. A bottle of Cabernet. Dessert, tiramisu for 2. Romantic, predictable, and now, documented. The silent camera. The next move was trickier. I couldn't risk anything obvious. Monica wasn't dumb, just arrogant. So I went subtle. Remember that old picture frame in our living room she always said was crooked? I finally fixed it. Or at least that's what I told her. In reality, I slipped a micro camera into the top of the frame, motion activated, streaming to a secure drive only I could access. It wasn't about catching her red-handed. I already knew what she was doing. It was about building a story so airtight she couldn't wriggle out of it with excuses. 3 nights later, the footage pinged my phone. Monica, slipping into the living room at 10:30 p.m., whispering into her phone. "Can't wait to see you again." Silence. Then her laugh, the same one she used to save for me. I sat there in the dark, watching, not angry, not heartbroken, just steady, because now I had what I needed. Playing nice. The next morning, I brewed coffee and slid a plate of pancakes in front of her. She looked surprised. "Well, aren't you sweet?" she said, kissing my cheek. "Just thought you deserved a treat," I replied. "You've been working so hard." She smiled, guilty, nervous. "You're too good to me." I almost laughed. If only she knew how right she was. The visit. By now, I wasn't just ahead of her. I was playing a different game entirely. So I decided to meet Chase Donovan myself. He worked at some trendy co-working office downtown, the kind with glass walls and free kombucha. I showed up in a suit, holding a portfolio under my arm like I belonged there. "Excuse me," I told the receptionist. "I'm here to see Chase Donovan. He's expecting me." She didn't even check. She just waved me toward the glass doors. That's the thing about men like Chase. They carry themselves like they own the place, and people believe it. When I found him, he was leaning over a desk, charming some intern. He looked up at me, a little startled. "You must be Chase," I said, extending a hand. He hesitated but shook it. "Yeah, and you are." I smiled, calm as a Sunday morning. "Monica's husband." The color drained from his face so fast, it was almost worth the whole mess. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I just looked him in the eye and said, "I know." Then I walked out, leaving him standing there with his mouth half open. The patience game. That night, Monica came home late again, humming some tune under her breath. She didn't notice the faint smudge of lipstick on her collar, not hers. "How was your day?" I asked. "Exhausting," she sighed. I smiled, nodding. "Get some rest. You deserve it." She smiled back. No idea the walls were already closing in. Because while Monica thought she was playing me, I was already laying the final piece of the trap. And when it snapped shut, she wouldn't even hear it coming. By this point, I had everything I needed. Receipts, call logs, camera footage, even the name of the smug little parasite she thought I wouldn't notice. But patience is the sharpest blade in a man's arsenal, and I wasn't ready to cut just yet. Because Monica wasn't just cheating on me. She was underestimating me. And that, my friend, is unforgivable. Acting the fool. The next morning over breakfast, I tested her one more time. "You know," I said, stirring sugar into my coffee. "I was thinking maybe we should take a little trip. Just the two of us. Reconnect." Her fork froze over her eggs. It was quick, but I saw it. Then came the fake smile. "Oh, that sounds nice. When were you thinking?" "Next weekend. Maybe the mountains. Just us." She tilted her head. "Next weekend might be tricky. Work, you know." "Of course," I said, pretending to be disappointed. "Work always comes first." She relaxed. She actually relaxed, thinking she dodged the bullet. That was when I knew for certain she had plans with Chase. So I leaned in, kissed her cheek, and said softly, "You deserve a break. Maybe another time." She smiled back, all gratitude and lies. Friends in the shadows. That afternoon, I met Drew at a quiet diner on the edge of town. He slid into the booth, eyeing me like I'd grown a second head. "You sure you don't want to just—" "I don't know, confront her?" he asked. "No," I said flatly. "Confronting her is what she's expecting. Tears, shouting, the whole Lifetime movie special. Not my style." "So what's the plan?" I leaned back, lowering my voice. "The plan is to let her build her castle higher, brick by brick, until she forgets I'm the one holding the ground underneath." Drew whistled low. "You're scarier than I thought." "Not scary," I corrected. "Strategic." The weekend show. By Friday, she was practically glowing with anticipation. She kissed me goodbye that morning like she was playing the part of a loving wife in a sitcom, then left with a suitcase she claimed was for a work retreat. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. The little camera in the picture frame caught her packing Thursday night. Dresses, heels, lingerie I hadn't seen in years. And she'd left the receipt for a hotel reservation crumpled in the trash. Room for two. Not subtle. That night, I poured myself a drink, logged into the camera feed on my phone, and watched the living room sit in silence. The house felt emptier, but I wasn't lonely. I was free. Free of pretending, free of her performance. And the best part? She thought she was getting away with it. The first slip. Sunday evening, Monica came home smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. She dropped her suitcase by the door and stretched like she'd been on a yoga retreat. Good weekend? I asked, looking up from the paper. Exhausting, she sighed. Workshops all day, hardly any sleep. I nodded, folding the paper neatly. Well, I hope it was worth it. She froze for half a second. Not long, but long enough. Of course. Why wouldn't it be? I smiled, stood, and kissed her forehead. No reason at all. That night, she slept soundly beside me. I lay awake, watching the faint rise and fall of her chest, wondering how many nights she'd spent like this, smiling at me with her eyes closed while her mind belonged to someone else. Building the file. The following week, I quietly assembled the evidence. Hotel receipts, pulled from her purse when she showered. Phone records, courtesy of my IT buddy, showing late-night calls to Chase. Video clips, her laughing into her phone, whispering his name. Restaurant bills, courtesy of Ryan, each one carefully tucked into a folder. I didn't just want to know she was cheating. I wanted to know the pattern, the rhythm, the choreography of her betrayal. Because when the curtain finally fell, I wasn't going to hand her a single ugly truth. I was going to hand her the entire performance she'd staged and let her realize I'd been sitting in the front row the whole time. The test run. On Thursday, I called her office around lunch. Hi, this is Adam Keller. Can you transfer me to Monica? Oh, sorry, she's out to lunch with a client, the receptionist said cheerfully. I checked my watch. 1:15 p.m. Interesting. I texted Drew. Check the steakhouse. 20 minutes later, Drew sent me a photo. Monica, in that red dress again, laughing across the table at Chase. I stared at the picture for a long moment, then texted back. Perfect. Don't say a word. A conversation she didn't expect. That night at dinner, I set down my fork and said casually, So, how was lunch today? She looked up, startled. Oh, fine. Just a client meeting. Steakhouse again? I asked, biting into a piece of chicken. Her fork clattered onto her plate. What makes you say that? I shrugged. Just a hunch. She laughed, too loudly, too quickly. You're funny. Am I? I asked, smiling. And then I went right back to eating, leaving her to stew in silence. The calm before. By Saturday morning, Monica was restless. She kept checking her phone, pacing the kitchen, humming under her breath. You okay? I asked, sipping my coffee. Yeah, just tired. I nodded. You should take a nap. You've been working hard. She smiled faintly. Thanks. And just like that, she disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone with the silence. I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window. The trap was set. The bait was taken. All that was left was to wait for the right moment to pull the string. Because Monica still thought she was 2 steps ahead, and I was about to show her she'd been standing on my chessboard the entire time. The countdown. That evening, I got a text from Drew. He just checked into the hotel. Room 214. She'll be there in an hour. I smiled. Perfect. I didn't need to storm in. I didn't need to catch them in the act. I just needed the final piece of proof, the nail in the coffin of her little charade. So I poured myself a drink, sat back in my chair, and let the clock tick. Because by the time Monica walked through that hotel door, she wasn't just cheating on me. She was walking straight into the ending I'd been writing all along. There's an art to revenge. People think it's about anger, but anger makes you sloppy. Real revenge is about patience, timing, and a smile so calm it scares them more than a shout ever could. And that Saturday night, while Monica slipped into her little red dress and powdered her nose in our bathroom mirror, I sat downstairs sipping whiskey, already knowing exactly where she was headed. The departure. She came down the stairs like she was about to walk a runway. I had to give her credit. She looked stunning. Not for me, of course. That ship had sailed months ago. Going out? I asked, keeping my tone casual. She hesitated, just long enough for me to notice. then forced a smile. Just grabbing a drink with Rachel. Girl time. I raised my glass in a toast. Sounds fun. Don't wait up. The relief on her face almost made me laugh. She thought she'd slipped the leash. She didn't even notice I was the one holding it. The door clicked shut. I waited 10 minutes, then pulled out my phone. A message from Drew was already waiting. She just checked in. Room 214. He's with her. Showtime. The final piece. Now, I wasn't about to burst into that hotel room like some reality TV husband screaming accusations. No, that's how you end up looking desperate, pathetic. Instead, I had arranged a little delivery. Earlier that week, I'd slipped an envelope under the hotel's front desk with a note. Please deliver to room 214 at 9 p.m. sharp. A crisp $50 bill made sure they didn't ask questions. Inside the envelope, a neat folder containing every piece of evidence I'd gathered. Restaurant receipts, phone records, photos Drew had snapped, screenshots of her texts, and yes, still shots from that camera in the living room. Each page had a sticky note at the bottom. Smile for the camera. Hope the steak was good. I'm always watching. Call it theatrical. I call it effective. The wait. Back home, I poured another drink and waited. It was almost peaceful. The house was quiet, the night still. At exactly 9:12 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Monica. What is this? I let it sit. Another came 30 seconds later. Adam, this isn't funny. Then a call. I declined it. She tried again. Declined. By the fourth attempt, I finally answered, keeping my voice calm. Enjoying the hotel. There was a pause. Then her voice, sharp, trembling. What the hell is this? How dare you? How dare I? I cut in smoothly. No, Monica. How dare you? You went through my stuff? I chuckled. Through your stuff? Monica, I didn't have to. You left a trail a mile wide. The hotel receipts. The calls. The pictures. You weren't clever. You were sloppy. Her voice cracked. This is insane. I can explain. No need. I said. I don't need explanations. I need closure. Silence. I pictured her glancing at Chase, his smug face finally realizing the walls were caving in. You think you're so smart, she whispered finally. No, I said. I just know how to play the long game. Then I hung up. Drew's call. Not 5 minutes later, Drew called, laughing so hard he could barely breathe. Man, I wish you could have seen her face. She stormed out of that room like she'd just seen a ghost. Chase looked like he was about to faint. I smirked. Good. Let them stew. We're just getting started. You're seriously calm about this, he said. Calm men are dangerous men, Drew. Remember that. The aftermath. Monica came home around midnight. Her heels clicked against the hardwood, but her usual confidence was gone. She looked smaller somehow, her shoulders hunched, eyes darting like she was waiting for me to explode. I didn't. Instead, I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping tea, as if I'd been waiting up for her like a worried husband. You're still awake, she said softly. Couldn't sleep, I replied. Long day. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For once, Monica, my sharp-tongued, always in control Monica, had no words. Want some tea? I asked, sliding a cup toward her. She just stared at it, hands trembling. The calm talk. Finally, she sat down across from me. Adam, I held up a hand. Don't bother. We both know what's been happening. Her lips parted, but I kept going. You think I'm blind? That I don't notice when my wife suddenly works late, when her phone becomes her second heartbeat, when she puts on a dress I haven't seen in years for girl time? She looked down, silent. I leaned forward. Here's the thing, Monica. You didn't just betray me. You underestimated me. You thought I was some clueless husband who'd never catch on. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I almost laughed. That's the funniest thing you've said all year. Her eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't moved. Tears were her last defense, the final trick. I'd seen it before. You're angry, she said softly. No, I replied, leaning back. I'm patient. And patience is scarier than anger. She swallowed hard. What are you going to do? I smiled. You'll see. The hidden ace. Here's what she didn't know. Earlier that week, I'd already spoken to a lawyer. The folder of evidence wasn't just for her and Chase. It was for the court. Adultery clauses still carry weight where we live, and I wasn't about to walk away from 12 years of marriage empty-handed while she pranced around with a man who looked like a cologne commercial reject. But the revenge wasn't just legal. Oh no, I had something better planned. something she'd never see coming until it hit her like a freight train. The calm before the storm. The next few days were almost comical. Monica tried to act normal, cooking dinner, asking about my day, pretending we were still some picture-perfect couple. I played along, smiling, nodding, listening. All the while, I was moving the pieces into place, quietly transferring money into a separate account, packing a small bag she wouldn't notice missing, printing copies of the evidence for safekeeping. Because when the moment came, I wasn't just going to leave her. I was going to leave her with nothing. The countdown begins. On Friday evening, as she hummed in the kitchen, phone buzzing beside her, I leaned in the doorway and smiled. Big weekend planned? I asked. She glanced up, startled. Just catching up on errands. I nodded, smiling wider. Sounds nice. She relaxed, turning back to her chopping board. And as I watched her slice vegetables like nothing was wrong, I felt that calm, steady certainty settle over me again. Because she still thought she was safe. And in less than a week, she was going to learn what it feels like when the ground you're standing on suddenly disappears. By Monday, Monica was practically glowing again. It amazed me how quickly guilt fades when someone thinks they've gotten away with it. She packed her gym bag, though I'd already confirmed the gym had become Chase's condo, kissed my cheek, and breezed out the door. As soon as her car was gone, I made my move. The evidence folder had already been copied 3 times. One for the lawyer, one for safe deposit, one for the man himself, Chase Donovan. That last one I mailed directly to his office, marked confidential. Nothing like letting a man's co-workers discover he's a homewrecker to test the strength of his ego. But the real masterpiece? The bank accounts. I'd been quietly moving funds for weeks. Every transfer perfectly legal, every receipt documented. Monica hadn't noticed because, well, Monica didn't notice anything unless it was wearing a tailored suit and a Rolex. By the end of the week, I'd secured every dime I was entitled to, and a few I wasn't. The stage was set. The curtain was rising. That Friday night, I invited Monica to dinner. Candles, her favorite wine, the works. She dressed like a queen, thinking maybe I was finally bending to her silent script of forgiveness. Halfway through the meal, I slid an envelope across the table. "What's this?" she asked, smiling. "Open it." She pulled out the first page, a copy of her text thread with Chase. Her smile froze. She flipped to the next page, the hotel receipt, then the restaurant photos, then the still shot of her whispering into her phone at 11:42 p.m. Her face drained of color. "You?" "I know," I said calmly. "I've known for weeks." Tears welled up. She reached across the table. "Adam, Save it," I interrupted. "This isn't a negotiation. This is a notice." "A notice?" she whispered. "That our marriage is over, and that you won't be walking away from it with what you think." She blinked, panic seeping into her voice. "You wouldn't." "Oh, but I would," I said, smiling. I stood, left the envelope, and walked out, leaving her alone with the candlelight and the wreckage of her carefully rehearsed lies. By Monday, the dominoes started falling. Chase called her, furious. Apparently, his office had received the package. His shiny reputation? Gone. The promotion he'd been bragging about? Pulled overnight. Monica stormed into the house, her voice shrill. "What did you do?" "I just sipped my coffee." "Funny question. More like, what did you do?" "You've ruined everything," she spat. "No," I said evenly. "You did. I just turned on the lights so you could see the mess you made." She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. But it wasn't heartbreak. It was fear. Fear of losing the comfort, the security, the carefully curated image she'd built on my shoulders. I leaned down, looking her in the eye. "You wanted excitement. Congratulations. You got it." The divorce hearing came 2 weeks later. I walked in calm, suit pressed, evidence folder in hand. Monica walked in looking like a wilted flower, her lawyer whispering frantic last-minute advice. When the judge reviewed the evidence, Monica's face told the whole story. I didn't need to say much. The receipts, the photos, the text did the heavy lifting. By the end of it, I had the house, the savings, and, most importantly, my dignity. Monica got a modest settlement, just enough to keep her afloat. Chase, he was unemployed, dumped, and probably wondering how life had spun out from under him so fast. Afterward, Monica cornered me in the parking lot. Her mascara was smudged, her voice shaking. "Adam, please. I made a mistake. We can fix this." I looked at her for a long moment. Then I smiled. "You're right. You did make a mistake, and now you get to live with it." I turned, walked away, and never looked back. The cruelest revenge isn't rage, or screaming, or dramatic exits. It's silence. It's living better without them. And as I drove off that day, windows down, sun on my face, I realized something. Monica hadn't destroyed me. She'd freed me. But she'd never be free of the memory of the man who outplayed her at her own game. Checkmate.